Rarely do you find a budget brand Superstrat that checks all the boxes, but today we may have found just that. Hey guys, welcome back to the Axe Guitar channel, your one-stop shop for budget guitar gear and floating tremolo tips and tricks. Today we're looking at one of the most eye-catching and surprisingly solid budget Superstrats on the market. This is the Guitar Fetish SBS VS260 in metallic purple relic. This comes in at the awesome price of just under $400 at $379 on the website. So right off the bat, this metallic purple finish looks awesome. Definitely screams 1980s, and it's got that road-worn finish, which is nice. And this is one of the finishes that SBS has on their production models. They also do the solid colors. I have the kind of slime green one right there, which I love. But this adds a nice touch if you're looking for a relic version and if that's what you're into. The relic job is actually pretty nice. When you feel this, you can feel that there's a very, very slight finish on it, but it still feels like the wood. So it actually has that authentic kind of look and feel. But what's underneath the finish is what's really important. This is a 3-piece alder body, which is just classic Superstrat construction. Alder tone wood really gives you that balanced mid-range and smooth top end. Perfect for any type of like clean fusion type of sound, but also great for shredding 80s rock and metal. And one thing I have to say when looking at this is that there is really no neck dive. It's appropriate, the balance is good, and this thing really isn't that heavy despite it having a floating trim. Now moving to the neck, this thing is beautiful. Kinda an SBS standard. This is a flame roasted maple neck. And what I love about SBS guitars specifically is that the fretboards here are pretty round and rolled so that these things feel like they've actually been used and broken in right out of the box. You've got a 25.5-inch scale length, which is pretty standard for any type of Superstrat. But then looking at the fretboard, this is a 20-inch radius fretboard, which is pretty flat. For your reference, the Ibanez Genesis RG550 comes with a fretboard radius of about 17 inches, whereas like Jackson Dinkies are generally a compound radius, which is like 12 to 16. So this thing is even flatter than those, which, I mean, if we're gonna talk about the pros of that, this is a shredder's guitar. A nice flat fretboard is great for leads. When looking at the neck profile, this is really like a modern C. So while it has a flat fretboard, this thing doesn't feel too skinny or brittle in your hand. It feels like you're holding on to something, which is I think a perfect mix. Now this SBS has 22 frets and the frets are nickel, which is kind of a bummer because a lot of budget brand guitars are coming out with stainless steel, but that's something small. And then if you look down here, this has a truss rod adjustment at the heel, which is clutch. Having your truss rod adjustment at the heel is just so much better than having it at the headstock because it sucks to take off the plate, go in between the strings. Sometimes you have to take off your strings, which is bummer. This makes it just so much easier, and you know, it's kind of like a premium feature found on a budget style guitar. All right, let's talk about this Floyd, because if we didn't, then would we even be the Axe Guitar channel? So this model comes with a by Floyd Rose floating trim. This is a genuine Floyd, so you're not getting some licensed knockoff on this guitar. The by Floyd Rose trims are really similar, in fact, pretty much identical to the Specials, but they're the OEM version of the Specials. So what does that mean? They come on guitar stock. Floyd Rose has deals with guitar brands where they give them these Floyds and then they make them a stock option on their production models. So what you're specifically getting with this tremolo is a spot hardened steel base plate, zinc alloy saddles, and a zinc alloy tremolo block in the back. Basically the same thing as a Floyd Rose Special, just a different emblem. Now we'll see how this performs during the demo, but the SBS guitar I have right here with a by Floyd Rose model is, and I'm being very transparent about this, probably one of the smoothest Floyds that I've used. And I've used originals, 1000 series, the new USA version. This one performed very well. Let's hope for the same in this bad boy. Now coming up to the headstock, you have your locking nut right here, and then you get a string tree, which is great because you want to stabilize those strings. And then flipping this bad boy around, you have your tuners right here, which are die-cast black tuners. They are not locking, which is kind of a bummer, but they are a 14:1 gear ratio. So some quick background on these guitars. These guitars are made in conjunction with Steve Brown, hence the name Steve Brown Sound. He's the former guitarist of Trickster, and these things have, over the years, proven to be very great production budget models that have performed very well over time. Now let's talk about what's powering this beast in terms of the pickups. This thing comes with two Arena Rock Plus Alnico 2 pickups designed by Steve Brown himself. The bridge pickup clocks in at around 14.5K and the neck pickup at around 12.4. And these things are overwound Alnico 2 pickups, and they really, in my opinion, in my experience, deliver a very good middle ground tone that suits a lot of different styles. Now, some important information under the hood about these pickups is that they're a part of the GFS quick plug system, which is kind of like the old Seymour Duncan Blackouts, and I think EMG does this too, where you don't need a solder to change out the pickups. They have a plug system underneath. Some pros to this system is that if you want to upgrade or change your pickups, and those pickups are within the quick plug system or compatible, boom, easy change, unplug, plug them back in, screw the pickups on. The cons are if you want to upgrade to like a different brand, say like a Seymour Duncan Nazgul or the Mark Holcomb signatures, it's gonna probably add more soldering and you're gonna have to tinker with it a little bit more. Now you'll hear exactly how these pickups sound in the demo, and I will compare them to a Seymour Duncan Nazgul, which is a pretty high output pickup, so you can see where these pickups kind of land in that middle ground. Now also, something that's super important is that this thing has a coil tap function, which is also really great to have on a budget brand guitar. Now, one last thing about this pickup system that's really gonna pique your interest. These things come with a treble bleed circuit, which when you dial back the volume, you're not gonna miss out on the clarity and the tone of the pickups. It literally just brings the volume down. It doesn't get that muffled sound like you do with other guitars. It's awesome. All right, guys, we can talk about specs all day, but we need to plug this thing in to hear how it sounds. I'm gonna be running this through my pedal board, which today we have the Direwolf Overdrive. Very excited about this pedal. This is one of the pedals that Brandon Ellis has used on tour with the Black Dahlia Murder. And then that'll go right into my PV Invective mini head, which does have a clean channel, so we'll do some cleans, we'll do some riffage, and then always we'll do some leads and show you how the Floyd works. But right before we get into that, make sure you hit subscribe down below so you don't miss videos about budget guitar brand gear and tremolo tips and tricks. Let's do it! All right, guys, that's the SBS VS260 in isolation. What did you think? Just to give you some context, let's compare the Arena Rock Plus bridge pickup to something like the Nazgul, which has a lot higher output, so you can see where that pickup falls on the spectrum. Just for your reference, the Nazgul is a ceramic magnet pickup, really high output, whereas the SBS guitar is gonna have that Arena Rock Plus, which is an Alnico 2. So keep that in mind. Can you tell the difference between those two pickups? It's a pretty big difference, right? So this guitar, the SBS VS260, is definitely probably a guitar that is gonna be a good middle ground that can play a lot of different genres. It can get tight and get into that metal range, but the thing is, these pickups are going to be a little bit more dialed down, smooth, but less output. But overall, this guitar did perform really well. I'm a big fan of the roasted maple necks. I think that's an awesome option on a lot of these budget brand guitars. And then I do like this Floyd. This Floyd did operate pretty well. I would say this one isn't as smooth as the one I got with the solid green here. That one just performs very well. But with some intonation and some tweaking, this Floyd would probably be just fine. And lastly, I think where this thing shines is actually its electronics. Because you have the coil tap and then you have that treble bleed circuit, while these pickups aren't the highest output, you're getting a huge bang for your buck in the electronics as a whole. So if you're a big 80s fan or you like the relic designs, this guitar will fit perfectly in your arsenal. And I also think that this plays very well through a set of pedals to where you can alter the sound to really get what you want. I don't think you're limited because of all the features on the pickups. All right guys, that's the end of the video. I really appreciate you hanging out with me today. Go ahead and hit subscribe below so you don't miss videos like this, and be on the lookout because this is gonna be one of our top prizes for the Axe Guitar Shred Contest. More to follow on that.